She handed me divorce papers like a napkin, while her parents sat there smiling. 1 week after I spent my entire life savings rebuilding their house. What I found under the floorboards later changed everything. Let me rewind 1 week, because that's where the betrayal actually started. Monday morning. She passed me the papers like it was a napkin. No emotion, no explanation. Just sign these and be out before noon. Across from me on the damn couch I helped buy, her parents were smiling. Smiling like they just won the lottery. While my life was being detonated with the pull of her pin. I glanced at the papers. Divorce. No discussion. No fight. Just like that. Taylor, the woman I'd loved, rebuilt a home for, protected, was discarding me like spoiled milk. Let me rewind a little. Just 1 week earlier, I'd finished spending my entire savings. Everything I had squirreled away over 6 years, rebuilding her parents' collapsing house. A storm had ripped through our area to part of the roof off, flooded the basement, even shifted the foundation slightly. It was bad. Her dad, Alan, had just lost his job. At least that was their story. They cried, they begged, and me like an idiot in a cape. I swooped in. I took unpaid leave from work, brought in my buddy from construction, called in every favor I had. I was hammering beams at 3 a.m. while Taylor sat inside scrolling her phone, laughing at God knows what. I thought I was doing something good, something honorable, family, loyalty, all that. I thought she'd be proud. That morning, I barely had time to sip my coffee before she dropped the bomb. "I'll come by for the rest of my things later," she said casually like she was talking about dry cleaning. "And don't make a scene, Jason. My parents already know. This isn't working anymore." Her dad gave me that smug look, the kind that says, "You were always the backup plan." Her mom, Janice, didn't even pretend to feel bad. She actually had the nerve to say, "We're proud of how you handled the renovation. You really came through." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat there stunned as my hands went numb and the room swirled. The woman I married, who I thought had my back, just cut me loose like I was a stray dog. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked, trying to hold whatever was left of my voice together. She smirked. "Honestly, Jason, that's not my problem anymore." I left with a gym bag and a box of tools. I slept 3 nights in my truck, 2 on a buddy's couch, and the last 2 in a motel room that stank of bleach and broken dreams. But it was on that 7th day when I returned to the house, not for her, not to beg, but to get a wrench I'd forgotten, that I found it. That thing in the crawl space, that dirty, dust-covered secret wedge behind the insulation like it didn't want to be found. And when I saw it, everything I thought I knew about Taylor, her parents, and this entire betrayal turned inside out. She thought she could erase me. Thought she could throw me away like yesterday's trash. But she forgot something. You don't bury a man alive and expect him not to claw his way back. It was a faded shoebox duct-taped shut, wedged behind an old crawlspace vent in the farthest corner under the newly rebuilt floorboards. If I hadn't dropped my wrench through the slats and gone crawling like a damn raccoon to retrieve it, I never would have seen it. I don't know what made me open it. Maybe curiosity. Maybe a deep itching sense that something wasn't right inside. Photos, notes, receipts, a burner phone. At first glance it looked like a bunch of garbage. But as I started flipping through the contents, my stomach dropped, then twisted into something I can't even describe. A receipt from a hotel downtown for nights dated during the week. I was breaking my back fixing their house. A note on hotel stationery that said, "Thanks for the night. You always know how to make me forget he exists." Signed with a lipstick kiss. The photos blurry, candid shots, but one was sharp enough. Taylor, wrapped in a towel, standing at a hotel room door, kissing some dude who wasn't me. He was tall, lean, had that frat boy smugness. I recognized him. His name was Kyle, her friend from her old marketing job. She told me he was gay, told me he was like a brother. I dropped the photo. My hands were shaking. My jaw clenched so tight I felt a pop in my ear. She used me, set me up, made me the fool who rebuilt the castle while she snuck out the back gate with her Prince Charming. I sat there in the dirt and darkness with dust in my throat and rage in my chest. All those nights she came home tired, turned away from me in bed, called me needy for asking why she was always on her phone. It was all a setup. The second I poured my savings into that house, she'd already planned the exit. She knew I'd be drained. Knew I wouldn't have the energy or the money to fight back. But here's the thing she didn't count on. I don't go down quiet. That burner phone had messages still saved. Filthy ones, photos, names. Kyle. Alan. Wait, Alan. I read it again. Her dad's name. Text from Kyle. "You sure Alan's okay with this? We're doing it under his roof." Her reply. "Oh. He thinks it's payback for Jason being a boring loser. Don't worry, Daddy's on our side." The box hit the floor. It wasn't just Taylor. Her whole damn family was in on it. They played me. I rebuilt their home. Slept in my truck while they partied. Laughed behind my back. I stood up in that crawl space, hit my head on a beam, didn't even feel it. Everything they'd taken from me, my savings, my marriage, my dignity, I was about to take back tenfold. And I'd start tonight. I didn't go to the police. I didn't call a lawyer. I didn't even tell my friends. Not yet. Because I knew if I reacted now, angry, sloppy, loud, I'd lose the only thing I had left, the element of surprise. So I played dumb. I walked out of that crawl space like I just picked up my wrench and nothing more. I even smiled at Alan, who was outside grilling like some suburban king. He gave me a little wave like I was a dog who didn't understand he'd been kicked. I waved back. Inside, Taylor was laughing with her mom in the kitchen, barefoot, casual, like nothing ever happened. Like she hadn't nuked my life and handed me the pieces in a manila envelope. Thought you were gone for good, she said, not even looking up from her iced coffee. Need something? Just left my wrench. All good now. She shrugged. Try not to take anything else on your way out this time. I wanted to snap back, throw every receipt and photo on the damn countertop and scream in her face. But I didn't. I smiled, said thanks, walked out. Then I drove straight to an old buddy of mine, Mason. A beast of a man who owed me a favor from years back when I bailed him out of a rough situation. He runs a private security firm now. Deals with things that lawyers can't or won't. When I showed him the photos and messages, he just stared at me. Damn, Jay, this is cold. You sure you want to go this route? I'm done being the idiot. I want it all documented. I want them exposed and I want her to feel it. Mason nodded slowly. All right, then we start tonight. By 8 p.m. we had a burner phone cloned. By midnight we had Kyle's real address. Not the one he used for work, the one Taylor visited. Mason had guys watching the place from a distance. I didn't need to guess anymore. I was going to see it. But there was one more thing I needed to do first. I drove back to that house. Quiet, late, the kind of silence where betrayal breathes loudest. And I did what any man who's been robbed of his pride, his love, and his damn future would do. I opened their electric panel and killed the power. Then I walked into the backyard and unscrewed the main water valve quietly, carefully. They wouldn't even know until the morning. Petty maybe, but it wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was disruption. I wanted her off balance. I wanted her irritated, confused. I wanted her scrambling while I rebuilt what she tried to ruin. The next day the real storm started. Kay's car was caught on surveillance pulling into the driveway while Alan was still home. We watched, waited, took pictures. Then came the audio from a mic in the flower pot by the window. Taylor whispering, laughing, saying she wanted to take the final step, that everything was in place, that I was too soft to fight back. By next month, she said, we'll have that house in our name. He won't even fight it. Jason's pathetic. My jaw clenched. I bit down so hard I felt my nerves grind. They weren't just cheating. They were strategizing. This wasn't about love. This wasn't even about Kyle. This was about erasing me. And that's when it all clicked. She didn't fall out of love. She wasn't bored. She wanted control. And I was in the way. Not anymore. The following Friday I met with a lawyer. Not one of those billboard clowns. This guy was sharp, discreet, expensive, the kind of man people hire when they want results without noise. I laid everything out on his desk. The texts, the burner phone clone, the photos, the receipts, and then I handed him one more piece, something I found in the box that I hadn't even told Mason about yet. A signed agreement from Taylor's father, Alan, transferring temporary property rights of the reconstructed home to me for the purpose of renovations and safety evaluation. His signature witnessed by Taylor, dated 2 days before she handed me the divorce papers. The lawyer's brow lifted. So they tried to throw you out of a house that was temporarily, at least legally, yours. Exactly. Then let's burn them to the ground. That night I checked into a much better motel. Not because I needed luxury, but because I needed clarity, quiet, and cold AC. I stared at the ceiling, phone in my hand, watching Kyle's live location pulse on the screen. My buddy's tracker was still holding. He was at a fancy rooftop restaurant, a place Taylor always said was too expensive for us. Figures. I scrolled through the mic audio again, stopping at a part 1. Missed the first time. Kyle, when's the settlement going through? Taylor, end of the month. We'll get the house. My parents get paid and Jason gets a kick in the balls. Everyone wins. Kyle laughed. Then she added, he's too nice. That's his real weakness. He'd never do anything. My pulse went cold. They still thought I was asleep, drained, defeated. Perfect. The next day I filed an injunction. The lawyer did it fast and quiet. Alan couldn't sell or transfer the house. Taylor couldn't make any financial moves related to it. They'd get served Monday morning. I wasn't done. That Sunday, I knocked on the door of Taylor's cousin or Renee. She and Taylor used to be close, but they had a falling out over some family inheritance drama. Renee always had a bit of a grudge. She opened the door in sweats, holding a wine glass. Looked me up and down. Well, Jason, perfect husband. To what do I owe this miracle? I need your help destroying your cousin. Her eyes lit up like a Christmas tree. We talked for 3 hours. Renee gave me the missing piece. Kyle wasn't just a lover. He was Taylor's boss. She'd moved into his department 3 months before filing. The affair started on the company's dime. You're telling me she's been using company trips for this? Oh, sweetie, I'm telling you she's been using company fonts. They just don't know it yet. And just like that, the final card fell into place. I called Mason. I want a full report. Every place they've stayed, every charge tied to that company, I want to bury them. You got it? Monday morning hit and with it came chaos. Taylor texted me at 8:03 a.m. What the hell did you do? Why is the account frozen? I didn't respond. By 9:12, Alan called me 6 times. By 10 o'clock, my lawyer filed the claim with the company's ethics department. And by noon, Taylor was locked out of her office. They underestimated the man they thought they broke. And I wasn't even done yet. Tuesday morning, I walked back into that house. Not the one Taylor kicked me out of, but the one I had legally paused in transfer, the one I'd poured my blood and savings into, the one they thought they stole. The court documents were delivered 2 hours earlier. The locks hadn't been changed yet. I let myself in, slow and quiet. Janice was in the kitchen in a robe, holding her phone like it was a dead mouse. Alan stood stiff, reading through the papers with a face like curdled milk. Morning, I said calmly. Just here to take photos for the case. Legal stuff. Janice flinched. Alan tried to puff his chest but said nothing. Cowards in daylight. I pulled out my phone and started taking photos. Walls, floor, roof, everything I fixed. Every nail and screw that I paid for. You can't just walk in here. Alan finally spat. You signed it over for safety assessment, I replied, holding up the document. You remember signing this, don't you? He opened his mouth, then shut it. He did remember. I'll only be a few minutes, I added. Wouldn't want to interfere with your upcoming financial investigation. That hit. His face drained. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, by the way, I said over my shoulder. Your daughter's been suspended from work. Something about misused funds and inappropriate workplace conduct. Not sure how that'll play in her little settlement strategy, Janice gasped. Alan finally sat down. Outside, I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I didn't celebrate. I breathed. That night, I finally got the last piece from Mason, a hotel surveillance clip. Clear as day. Taylor and Kyle wrapped up in each other, walking arm in arm into a resort she claimed was for self-care. The timestamp. One day after I pulled an all-nighter fixing the leaking crawl space, the rage wasn't hot anymore. It was frozen, precise. I sent that clip along with the receipts and screenshots to HR. I CC the ethics board and I blind copied her boss's boss. Renee gave me the name. Less than 24 hours later, Taylor was terminated. Not suspended, not on leave, fired, blacklisted from the industry. Her text came in like clockwork. You ruined my life. I stared at the message and I wrote back just one word. Good. She didn't respond. But I wasn't done because now it was time for the part she never saw coming. Not revenge. Redemption. I moved back into the house the following week. Not because I needed shelter but because I could. The court granted a temporary occupancy injunction while the ownership was being evaluated. And my lawyer made sure Taylor couldn't even set foot on the property without risking arrest. It was poetic, really. The woman who told me to be out by noon now couldn't legally step onto the lawn I'd reseeded. But it wasn't just about the house. It was about reclaiming what she tried to erase. My sanity, my dignity, my voice. Inside, I found little reminders of her chaos. A wine glass still on the counter, a drawer filled with her old makeup, a yoga mat rolled up in the corner like a forgotten lie. I gathered it all into boxes, left them outside the front door, and sent her a single message. Come get your things. You have 1 hour. She showed up 45 minutes later in a black SUV, sunglasses on, hair done up like she hadn't just been professionally humiliated. Kyle was behind the wheel but didn't get out. He looked straight ahead like a man hoping the ground would swallow him whole. She approached the porch with slow, controlled steps. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed. These are all your items, I said calmly. Anything else left behind becomes trash. She sneered. You know this isn't over, right? I tilted my head. You're right. It isn't. Her smirk faltered. I stepped closer, voice low, because next week the fraud case opens. And your name's at the top of the list. She flinched but tried to recover. You think anyone's going to care about your little revenge crusade? I smiled, slow and cruel. It's not revenge. It's just the bill coming due. She looked back at Kyle like she needed backup, but he didn't move. He didn't even blink. She grabbed her boxes in silence and stormed off. I watched them drive away with the kind of peace that doesn't come from justice, but from finally seeing clearly. In the following days I started repairing more than just walls. I reached out to friends I'd ignored during the chaos. Took long walks, read books I hadn't touched in years. I started sleeping again, real sleep, not the kind where your body shuts down from emotional exhaustion. Mason invited me out for drinks. We sat on his patio watching the sun go down, beers in hand. You did good, he said. Real good. I feel like I've been underwater for a year. I admit it. You were. But you came out swinging. I nodded, quiet. There was still a court case coming. The divorce would finalize in a few months, but I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't broken. I was rebuilding. And this time I wasn't doing it for someone else. I was doing it for me. Weeks passed, and with each day that I didn't hear from Taylor, the weight on my chest got lighter. The legal process grinded on, slow, cold, and personal, but I wasn't afraid of it anymore. I had truth on my side, and more importantly, I had clarity. She had always worn masks. Sweet around friends, supportive in public, but dismissive and bitter when no one was looking. I used to convince myself that it was just stress or her way. I'd bend over backwards, excuse the little jabs, the rolled eyes, the way she always needed more and never noticed what I gave. But now the veil was off. I saw her for who she really was. Opportunistic, manipulative, and hollow. I spent my mornings jogging through the neighborhood, headphones in, watching the sunrise like I was seeing it for the first time. In the evenings, I worked on the house, not for her parents, not to prove anything, but because it was mine now. The tools felt different in my hands. There was pride in the way I measured, saw, built. One afternoon, I got a call from HR at Taylor's former company. We just wanted to let you know, the woman said, her tone clipped and businesslike, that our internal review is complete. Several charges on the company card were confirmed to be unauthorized. Your submitted evidence was critical in this process. Thank you for letting me know, I said calmly. Miss Sutton's employment has been terminated, and we've flagged her profile to prevent future internal hires. We're also forwarding the case to local authorities for possible prosecution. I hung up the phone in silence. It wasn't joy I felt. It wasn't even vindication. It was a quiet, settled justice, like the universe had finally balanced the equation. Later that week, I drove by her new apartment, not out of longing, but to make sure she wasn't circling mine. Call it instinct. Her SUV was there, parked crookedly. Kyle's car wasn't. Part of me thought she might show up again. Maybe try to spend some final excuse. Blame stress. Pretend none of it was real. I'd seen her manipulate people her whole life, friends, colleagues, even family. But she never came. Maybe she knew the game was over. Or maybe she was already trying it on someone else. It didn't matter. What mattered was what came next. I started writing again. I hadn't touched a journal in years, but now the words poured out like pressure bleeding from an old wound. I wrote about what it felt like to lose everything, then gain yourself in the rubble. I wrote about love and how it doesn't always die with screams. Sometimes it rots quietly while you're too distracted to smell it. I wrote about rebuilding. Not homes, not relationships, just yourself. And one night after finishing a chapter, I realized something I hadn't felt in over a year. I was happy. Not because she was gone, but because I was back. And no one could take that from me again. The final court date came on a gray rain-soaked Thursday. Fitting, I thought. Everything about our marriage had been dressed in fake sunshine, but underneath it was always wet drywall and termite rot. She showed up in heels and a black blazer, trying to look composed. Kyle wasn't with her. She didn't meet my eyes. Maybe because she knew, or maybe because deep down she was scared for the first time, maybe ever. I didn't gloat. I didn't smirk. I didn't speak unless spoken to. The judge read through the evidence, her financial misconduct, the property documents, her attempt to eject me illegally, and finally the affair that started under her boss's nose. The room was quiet, just the shuffle of paper and the occasional throat clear. When the gavel came down, it was over. The house, mine, spousal support denied. Legal fees hers. She left the courtroom alone, gripping her purse like it was the last thing she could control. Outside, the rain had stopped. I didn't even notice when it did. I stood on the steps of that courthouse like a man who had been set on fire and somehow walked out the other side, not untouched but alive. I took the long way home, windows down, music low, breeze on my face. When I walked back into my house, I didn't feel the need to sage it or erase the memories. No, I let them sit there. Let them rot in the corners like old food you stopped noticing because I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I poured a drink, sat on the porch, watched the clouds pull apart and let the light back in. This is what they don't tell you about betrayal. It doesn't just take your trust. It takes your reflection. It warps who you thought you were. But if you're lucky, if you fight, if you survive, you come back sharper, stronger, and absolutely bulletproof. So, here's my advice to anyone who's been in my shoes. Don't rush the revenge. Don't beg for closure. And never ever hand over your worth to someone who only values you when you're silent. Let them bury you.